do a little introduction. Those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Paul Krausick, Digital Watchdog. I'm the Director of Education for Digital Watchdog, and handle stuff like this, doing webinars, trainings, training classes. We're going to talk a little bit more about different training, different webinars at the end of this webinar, of course. And today we're going to talk about Digital Watchdog 4K cameras, how the camera functions, and also how it functions in spectrum. So it's a sort of a first look for some of you guys. I know some of you guys have actually seen it and ordered them and brought them in. So we'll get started. So first off, when we talk about the cameras, this one is a low-profile camera. It's actually smaller than our standard domes. It's a little smaller than what we call our MF dome cameras. This particular model is a 3.6 to 10 millimeter varifocal P-iris lens. It's got true wide dynamic range. It's H.265, H.264 motion JPEG, 70-foot IR, okay, with intelligent camera sync, which that means the camera will not, the power of that IR will raise or lower if something gets closer to it. It has programmable privacy zones and all the features you'd expect: auto white balance, backlight compensation, just all the features you'd expect. But the 3.6 to 10 millimeter varifocal lens is key. There are also, if you notice, some other models on here that are coming. So those of you guys who are not familiar with our part numbers, the IA means it's a varifocal. But if it has an I, let's say 2.8, okay, that means it's 2.8 millimeters. So we're going to have a camera that's an indoor dome. Outdoor dome will probably have a bullet. That also will have the 2.8 indoor, and a varifocal lens. The T is true day-night, and then wide dynamic range. So give you an idea of just how some of our part numbers look. So we're just going to have a 2.8 indoor dome and a varifocal indoor dome on top of the other form factors that'll be coming. So what is 4K? 4K is a industry standard resolution, originally, of course, done for TV broadcast television. Sometimes it's referred to as 2160p. An image like that has over 8 million pixels. In comparison, 1080p is 2 million pixels. Okay, so you're 4 times the resolution. A 4 megapixel camera is 3.7 million pixels in the 16:9 aspect ratio. If you mess around with the aspect ratios, those numbers will vary, but usually you put them in a 16:9 aggregation. So what does 4K give you? 4K will give you a better image a little farther away and at a little wider angle, okay? Or if you're keeping this camera at the same distance in the same view as, let's say, you did your 2 or 3 megapixel camera, you'll be able to pick out more details, and that's what's buying the higher resolution is all about, is getting a little more detail out of the scene, just trying to figure out who's who and what's what. So when you get the camera, you either install it or put it on your bench, okay? You use our DW IP Finder software. So our IP Finder software will detect the camera, okay, and allow us to go in and either manually, or if you have a bulk number of them, you have 20 of them, 50 of them, whatever, you can change their IPs. You can also do, with version 4.4.3, do bulk password assignment, okay? So, and bulk firmware upgrade. All right, so the IP Finder is actually a very good tool for doing some bulk changes to cameras. You're installing, 10 4K cameras and some 360 cameras, panoramic cameras, whatever. You can go in and set the IPs, set the passwords. If the unit had been sitting on a shelf somewhere, the distributors, maybe it has the older firmware, you can even push the firmware update to it all from this one tool. So when you see a list of cameras, excuse me, guys, you'll get your thumbnail view, which you can then go in and click on and bring up this menu here, which will allow you to go in and change your passwords, view the camera website, even restart, or default the camera. Okay, so this, the features in this are quite a lot for this little IP finder tool. So this is where you go in and you update the firmware function of a camera if you needed to. And if you want to see thumbnails from cameras after you change the password, you enter the password, username and password here, and it'll pop up and generate with all the thumbnails. So just to give you an idea, I always recommend you get the camera. We don't put a little disk or USB or anything in the box. We ask you to download it. So one of these things to prep yourself, you go download it from the website to a laptop somewhere. We do have the IP finder on our Blackjack server. So if you're using a Digital Watchdog Blackjack server, the IP finder is installed on it. So just keep that in mind. And in this, excuse me, both password assignment and IP address changes works with all our cameras, not just the new 4K ones. So let's talk about what is in the box. Okay, so we open up the unit. Has a little piece of plastic in there to allow you to handle the dome without putting your fingers on it and getting fingerprints on it. We've gotten a lot of tech calls where people said stuff is blurry and things like that, and happened to be someone handling it with their hands. So we actually have a have that in there. We also have a little spot monitor out, which allows you to hook up to your test monitor to view either camera menus or go in and actually do a focus on the camera. Some small mounting brackets over here for ceiling mount. Extra plug, because you're going to actually run the wires through here. Of course, your tool to remove the camera. Some of you guys have Digital Watchdog cameras and have probably a lot of our tools lying around. So we'll now go next, sorry. So also in the camera, and so this is a view inside the camera, is the, I call it the I/O board, but a connection board, which allows you to hook up 12 volt to it directly. So if you want to use direct power, you don't want to use PoE, or have some sort of backup power, you could have that on here. You've got your alarm ins and outs, okay, which are addressable inside Spectrum, and audio ins and outs. So this camera will accept a microphone in and a speaker output. So if you want to do out of Spectrum 2A audio, this camera supports it. All right, or just audio in. So when you use your camera, you've changed your IP address, you now go in and hit the web page. What you're going to be faced with is this screen. You say, change the password. And none of the other things you want to go into, like setup, you're able to do it until you change the password and make it a strong password. So our default one, which gets you to this screen, is admin. But after that, you've got to immediately go change the password or use the IP finder tool to change the password on a bulk number of cameras to do it. And it's going to make you do, letters and numbers and then one special character. I think you have to be 8 characters in there. Okay. So you can still make it a very weak password, but better to make it something strong, record it somewhere that you'll remember. So just good policy, security policy going forward. So when you come to the web page, your setup will light up, and then depending on what browser you have, just switch it to HTML5. It'll work with all the browsers. There is a VLC plugin, which I think works a little better on a Mac using the VLC plugin in Safari, but HTML5 will work on all that. It's actually taking the MJPEG view and displaying the camera view for you. All right, so good browser compatibility with this one. Also, you'll then go in and be able to have control of full functions of the cameras from here, okay, including your codec, your if you want to title the camera anything, resolution, because the camera supports other resolutions, including down to 1080p, frame rate, its profile, so whether you're using H.264 or H.265, there are levels and profiles, CBR and VBR, and then some other items on here. And you can change camera information network, security and system, and we'll talk a little more about this, later. But this is where you go in and make all your changes to the camera in here. So how it appears in Spectrum. So Spectrum will auto detect it, okay, and show it by its, model number, and then you can right mouse button click and change its name to front door camera, side parking lot, north, whatever you want to do, and go in and just change that up, and away you go. And then if you go to the camera itself in setup, you'll see its IP address, its MAC address, its camera ID and spectrum, its RTSP stream. You can even ping the camera, okay? And if you want to, you can go here, click this, and it'll change the camera name. Oh, I got someone else joining me. Paul has joined me on the side. Mute your phone, whoever Paul is. So go in and also see the firmware number. Make sure you have the latest firmware in the camera. Beneath that, so there's a little page in there. Beneath that allows you to enable the audio on the camera, which will at least enable audio recording. Your aspect ratio, so whether you want to match it 4:3 or 16:9. Edit the credentials if you need to, and even rotate the image of the camera. So also in Spectrum, you can use all the features and functionality of Spectrum. So you can set it if you want to for 30 frames a second, but keep in mind it's a 4K camera, so that's going to use up more hard drive space, and you got to make sure you account for that. You can obviously use the motion record. Motion plus low res is high res when there's activity, and then when there's low res, it'll use the second stream, which is the equivalent of about a 4-SIF resolution camera. You can use the pre and post record. You can even copy the schedule, use any of these bitrate controls in Spectrum. So you've got full use of all the Spectrum features from this camera. In here is the motion detection. So again, you're going to have that wider view. So using this tree, because trees are a nuisance because they'll force a system to record even though there's no real activity. There's just a breeze blowing in the air. And so we can go in and we can just use Spectrum to mask these off. So we make sensitivity 0, which means these items move, they're not going to record. So I'm going to mask off that side, mask off another section, anything that's going to kind of wiggle in the air, maybe a squirrel running up and down the tree, one of these other ones, maybe there's palm trees off in the distance and so forth, and I still got this ground level view where someone will be walking, a car will be driving by, or whatever on the scene. So from here, inside Spectrum, you can make a basic exposure settings and change it if you want to H.264, H.265. I would actually recommend H.265 because it gives you a little smaller file size. But on the client side, you just got to be aware it does use up more CPU and video card resources because of the fact H.265 takes more power to decompress it. So you get a smaller file size, but it takes more power to decompress. But any more advanced changes you want to do, you click the web page tab at the top of your camera stream, and then you'll go right to the web page of the camera itself, just like it was if we logged into the camera directly with the web browser, because essentially that's what we've done, okay? So again, you can control all your functions and even go down and set smart bitrate control. That'll actually shrink the file size a little more and make your its bandwidth usage a little lower. So I recommend turning that on. But you can access everything from here. Excuse me. So we can go in, click web page, and I'm going down to system over here, and I can see system information, what resolution I'm running at, what frame rate, what's built into the camera. I can do a firmware update from here if I know where the file is, or if I use our FTP server. Very important, set the date and time, set your time zone, and everything set up right so this way the camera has the correct time in it. You also have the log so you can look at how the system is connecting. You can even factory reset the camera except for network settings. So if you did something and camera looks purple, you can just reset everything and change it back. All right, so again, you can go in here and do these every function of the camera can be done inside that setup. Same over here, if you want to just go to image adjustment and tweak the image a little bit, you can go in and change the brightness a little bit, contrast, saturation, whatever you have, you just click save, It'll report back that the changes were made. And then you can change your exposure setting, okay? Allows you to change where it's going to go look for light and then make the adjustment of light. That's where it has that spot, average, and center view. Day-night control, so we can turn on, switch the camera to black and white mode, set it on a schedule, so it'll turn on and off, IR to non-IR view. And then set it for auto. It'll just detect the amount of light in the area and then go back to color. Backlight compensation is actually where wide dynamic range is. You turn that on, and it will adjust between the lightest and darkest areas and give you a little better view, especially if you have a bright light coming right into the camera. You can also change the light balance mode. Auto seems to be the best, but you can go in and change it to adjust it for fluorescent light or even some bad lighting. Okay, this actually helps in bad lighting. Most of the time, they'll leave it on auto, and it'll be fine. Image enhancement has the 3D noise reduction. If someone installed the camera upside down, you can flip it, you can change it around, you can rotate the camera so it's in the right position on there. So those are some of the settings of the camera. Excuse me, the settings in Spectrum. So you'll see this on all of our new cameras and almost all of our cameras currently in the line. You can go in and get to the web page setup of the cameras now in Spectrum. So if you're remote, before, you need some sort of IP access to the IP address of the camera. Now you don't. Now you can just go into the setting of the camera and do it. So some of the other things with the camera, we have a warm-up bracket. We've got our gang box plate. So you put that over the, I think it's called a 4-gang box, and you screw it in there. Then you screw the camera to the gang box. We have a ceiling mount with a 12-inch drop, and we have a junction box for the camera, all in the same color. These cameras are coming in our new design. We call it our Decora white. Okay, so it's a white, looks very good on everything. It usually doesn't clash with much. So we're changing over, so you'll see our cameras and mounts coming in that white very soon. Any new model, stuff like that, will have them. Another thing I want to just touch on was we've released our Digital Watchdog online training. We actually have a website called www.university.digital-watchdog.com. You can sign up here. It is a true online learning center where you can go in and view videos, take tests, and even use Spectrum Live. Okay, so as you go through certain things in Spectrum, and some of you guys have taken my certification class, try to make you walk through stuff in there. This one will allow you to walk through Spectrum Live, stay on your computer, don't have to travel. You can, it's more self-paced. You can do it after work, you can do it before work. If you happen to go on the road, you can do it from your hotel. So it's a really good setup. And right now for April, we're doing a promotion, 50% off. Normally it's going to be $129 for a whole year. Part of that, though, if your customer's in our PIP program and does this and one other thing, you actually get access to our enhanced tech support line. So keep that in mind. Right now, discount code, 50, so you just get half price there, and we're going to do that till May 1st. So let's discuss a little bit about the Digital Watchdog website, okay, and where to find things and how things work on the website. So first off, you go to the Digital Watchdog website. We've got our, we'll just go to our home page here. So there we go. Go to our home page. And a home page, we have solutions and we have products. So if we want to go and say, I want to look at your outdoor cameras, we got a list by resolution. This one happens to be 4K. It's a 4K Starlight Plus outdoor dome. It'll go down. It'll give you information on HD over coax, the camera itself. Because it's not released yet, we'll go to IP cameras. I want Starlight Plus, outdoor dome. Got a lot more choices here. 2 megapixel, 4 megapixel, 5, 4K cameras. I can narrow it down to 4K. We can go in, view a few more photos of the camera, some more information on it. And then, come here, you. There we go. We have an FAQ on the camera, which brings us to our support page. Any documents, or if there is a firmware update, right now it's just IP Finder on there. If we have a firmware update, that'll be there also. A&E specs, data sheets, any related product, the specs of the camera. So if you want to see a specific spec of the camera, like power draw, IP66 rated, 5-year warranty, whatever warranty is, all that stuff is there. Feature set, and a little information about the VW difference. So that's part of the navigation of our website. You also notice, though, that these little icons. So it can bring you to a calculator, Spectrum demo, but we have this new one, TAA and NDAA compliant. That brings you to our support page and our digital watchdog, National Defense Authorization Act compliance statement. And this goes through, and I think some of you guys were in yesterday, so you guys have seen this already, but this goes through and gives all the part numbers of all of our items that are currently NDAA compliant. We have some, we just haven't been able to go in and look at the full component list yet. Those will be added to here shortly, but we got our illuminators, we've got our decoders there, HD spots, NASs, NVRs, ball cameras, panoramic bullets. As you can see, a large number, if not all of our cameras are listed on here. So again, these are all NDAA compliant cameras. So another way, let's see, go over here. Another spot on our website I'd like you to go to is our webinars. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this for a second. I go in here, and we have a list of our webinars. I'm going to show you the website because this list isn't complete. It's sort of what would fit on the page. And we have the webinar course we're in now, which is our 4K camera, April 30th. We're going to have A1 Plus and related cameras. This is our IP gear that is built in PoE. The day after, so that's Thursday. Friday is CAS setup, which is cameras with Spectrum built into it and storage and everything. So their camera, server, and everything. And then also how to integrate external storage, like a network attached storage to it for more. Then we're also going to have every Tuesday Works with Spectrum series. So that's going to be what works with Spectrum, what's integrated with Spectrum. And so our first one is Vision Labs on Thursday morning. I think it's about 11. And that's video analytics. Friday is thermal radar, which is the detection system. And then we have a bunch of others which will be here on the webinar website, which includes CP, which actually that's a Friday. Works with Spectrum, Iron Moon, which is video analytics, and it's sort of like gives you a Google search style video, video analytics search. Pro Data Key, the Sight Watch, Night Watch illuminators, doorbirds, and then of course our other ones for I call it Analog Thursday and IP Friday. So you can go into it. So we have a lot of webinars coming up with a lot of information for you.